Good morning and welcome to all of you here in the room and to our colleagues from the press online. We are not only very happy, I think we are also very honored to open this, to have reached this stage where we can open this really important show. So welcome to the Kunstmuseum Basel, and welcome especially to karawalker, who has made the trip in uncertain times and has been here for 10 days and has been most generous. And I think everybody is really very happy that she's here. This exhibition was supposed to open almost exactly a year ago. Meanwhile, we all know the Black Lives Matter movement has gained significant momentum and has created sort of an awareness worldwide for unresolved, deeply problematic issues like racism around the globe. Let me also maybe say that this show already is grounded in the collection of the Kunstmuseum Basel to some way, which is wonderful. In other words, we have been able to put together, to create a collection of works by karawalker in our collection. As you will see in the first room, when you enter the show this way, there's an important group of drawings, a powerful group of drawings that we have been able to acquire for the collection. And there's also, down at the Haus Gegenwart, there is a viewing or a presentation of 2 films by karawalker, one of which we also have belongs to our collection. And I please urge you to not forget that space down at the Gegenwart. I also love the symbolism that actually karawalker is now occupying the space that Joseph Beuys occupied for many decades. I think that's a nice chapter in a change of art history, which I'm very pleased about. We have collaboration. This is a tour, as you probably know. This will be a collaboration, a tour, and with the Schirn in Frankfurt. I believe a colleague from Frankfurt is also among us, so welcome to you as well. And then to the Depont Museum in Tilburg. Maybe another little but important remark about the accessibility of this show. We have tried to have as little barriers as possible to people for viewing this show. In other words, there is no special price for this show, and there will be, like each Sunday, it will be free of entrance. The entrance will be free of charge, and also every Wednesday from 5 to 8 p.m. the show is free of charge, is visible free of charge. That is important to us. There is a great catalog or artist book that has been published. I think Anita will tell us more about it. Just a few more things about accompanying programs. As you know, we are always trying to extend the visual part of our work. There will be an artist talk tomorrow, of course, with karawalker and with Anita Haldemann. Tomorrow, Friday, June 4th at 6:30 p.m., I believe, but it's in your press kit. There's also a live stream on your YouTube channel, on our YouTube channel, so many more can see it, hopefully. If you want to have a seat here as a press member, please let Karen Gehrig know. She will reserve seats, a few. We have a few seats for you. We don't have many seats, so if you want to be here then for this talk, please let her know. There is a wonderful collaboration, not the first one, as some of you know, with the Theater Basel. It's a ballet. It's called Ballet Telling Bodies. It's, as I said, in cooperation with the Kunstmuseum Basel. There's also a press review of that program, and that will be next week on the 8th of June. And if you want to have a seat for that press review preview, please also make yourself known with Karen Gehrig. I also want to say one second last remark about accompanying programs. There is a small, but in my opinion, beautifully curated show over in the main building called Schatten, Shadow, dealing with works from the collection, curated by Marion Heisterberg. Beautifully, I think it's a beautiful echo and honestly kind of an homage, I think, to Karawalker, because it shows works from several centuries dealing with this important trope or detail. Then the press conference itself will take about an hour. At the end, Cara is ready to answer a few questions. And they will be collected, I think, by Karen also. And at the end, Anita and myself will be able for interviews if you want to, but not Cara Walker. Voila, and then at the end of the press conference, there will be a video walk through the exhibition for our online colleagues, for our participants online. And now I want to thank Anita for a powerful and beautiful show curated with Cara Walker, and pass it on to you.
Thank you, Joseph. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kunstmuseum Basel. I am the head of the Department of Prints and Drawings, which we still proudly call the Kupferstichkabinett. And I want to emphasize that because I had the chance to invite Cara Walker to show her drawings here. And it is a pleasure and honor that Cara accepted this invitation and that we are now finally here celebrating this exhibition. And that it's possible to actually open it this week, because last year we had no clue when this would be possible. It is a disturbing, moving, at times humorous, and constantly thought-provoking exhibition that you will see. It will demand a lot from the viewers, but it also offers a lot, much more than maybe people would expect. You will meet an extraordinary artist, foremost a draftswoman, who relentlessly negotiates her identity as a Black woman artist in the USA or in the world today. I would like to first introduce Cara Walker. She has not really shown much in Switzerland, so this is the very big first appearance in a Swiss museum. She was born in Stockton, California in 1969 and moved to Atlanta, Georgia at the age of 13, where she also visited the College of Arts later and continued her studies at the Rhode Island School of Design, where she got her master's in 1994. The same year, she had a first appearance at the Drawing Center with her cutouts, the black silhouettes on white walls with which she filled whole walls, and they sort of have become her trademark. Of course, she's received many awards, has shown very internationally her works. She's not only known for the cutouts, as you surely are aware of. She has made the animated films that we showed two of them at the Gegenwart. And more recently, she has also made quite a stir with monumental sculptures in public spaces, such as the Sugar Sphinx in Brooklyn at the Domino Sugar Factory and the Fons Americanos at the Turbine Hall Tate Modern in fall 2019. She lives in New York, where she works as well, and well, she has always shown drawings and made drawings, but I think until now there has never been such a focus on her drawing work as we can present it today. The history of slavery is, of course, her main topic, because it is the history that is responsible for the situation today. And she often described herself as going through a time machine and go to different places and times in history to understand where she is now and where Black artists or Black people are today. 4 years ago, when I invited Cara to show her drawings here, we didn't know what would happen a few years later. We indeed faced some challenges or related to COVID, but everyone in the project was so committed, especially karawalker herself, that we were able to pull it through, and that she, as Josef said, has come here to install the show is a real commitment, and we are very grateful that she did this. And you'll see when you walk through the exhibition, it was absolutely vital that she would install it herself. A lot of the decisions, what would hang where or come into which vitrine, was decided here. So it's wonderful, everything worked out. In the process last spring, or a year ago in spring, we lost one of our authors to COVID, Maurice Berger, who wrote a very passionate and intelligent essay for this catalog about racism in the US and karawalker's importance in the arts, died related to complications with COVID. So that was a sad moment, but there were a few also advantages of the project being postponed, because we had a little bit more time for the catalog and were able to include an additional essay thanks to the flexibility and engagement of JRP editions, namely Clément Dirier and the designer Gilles Gavillet, who did a really wonderful job arranging those 600 images in dialogue with karawalker. So this essay I mentioned is by Aria Dean, a very young, up-and-coming artist and curator in the US. And she wrote a wonderful, very intriguing essay about the importance of black holes for karawalker. And there's, of course, also an essay by myself about drawings and a statement by the artist. So in a way, the catalog reflects the exhibition, because it's a little bit like a flood of drawings to delve into and to indulge and study the drawings, and only at the end you find the texts. And it's the same in the exhibition. There's just the drawings. If you want to have some commentary, or if visitors want to learn a little bit more to have some background of what's going on in this exhibition, there's a booklet available for visitors for free. As Josef emphasized, I think this is a really good moment for this exhibition to open. So many things happened since last year when we wanted to open the show originally. Not only did the Black Lives Matter movement become global, there were even protests here in Basel after the murder of George Floyd, but I think there's also a more intense and deeper awareness in Switzerland for racism and all the problems related to it. And also the Kunstmuseum has engaged or really put an emphasis during the last couple of years to diversify the program of shows here at the house. We had shows with Sam Gilliam, Theaster Gates, but also more women artists like Martha Rosler and Hito Steil or Isa Gensken recently. So I think karawalker's show fits perfectly into the profile we're developing as a museum. So, but what will you see in this exhibition? A lot of drawings, 600 drawings, and before we'll let Kara say a few things, I want to explain how it came about that we have 600 drawings. There's a certain tradition at this museum, especially with the Kupferstichkabinett, that my predecessor showed huge drawing shows, like 300 studies and sketches by Frank Stella or Joseph Beuys, really to give the opportunity to try and understand an artist, how he develops his ideas, and what he's thinking and feeling when he makes art. And so that's also why this drawing show fits perfectly into the tradition of the Kupferstichkabinett. The 600 drawings consist of basically two groups, we could say. There's about 46 drawings, very recent drawings from the years 2018 to 2020 that were made with this idea in the back of the mind of the artist. And they were made after Cara came here to see not only the galleries to think about how this show could look, but also she was at the storage or in the storage and of the Department of Prints and Drawings to see old master drawings. So we opened a couple of boxes for her. And it seems that triggered some desires or inspiration to intensify drawing again, and also to deal with techniques, old master techniques, iconography, so kind of paying homage to this place where the show is happening, but also asking and trying to answer questions about the importance of fathers, not only her own father maybe, who's an artist himself, but the patriarchal tradition or history of art, the old masters, the big old masters, how to relate to them and how to position herself as a black artist into this big history of art. But then there's the large group of 550 drawings, and they are of course not new, but they cover the last 30 years more or less, because Cara Walker started to open her own boxes in her archive and discovered a lot of pieces that she had kept away, either without a specific purpose. Some of them were too private or maybe too provoking to show them at an earlier point. And she offered us to show this big group of drawings from her archive here in Basel. And you can imagine, as a drawing curator, this was a very exciting moment, because we don't always get access to the archive of artists. It's also a proof of trust of the artist to our institution to do this well and be a good partner in doing this exhibition. So you'll see 550 sheets with notes, with writings, with text pieces, drawings, watercolors, collages, cutouts as well. So you will get to see some cutouts and silhouettes. You'll also see scrolls in the vitrines. I think the longest is like 10 meters long. It's like a sketchbook or a diary unfolding on a scroll. These are probably the most private or intimate pieces in the exhibition. So when I look at these drawings, I have a sense of kind of looking over the shoulder of the artist and see how she invents things, tries out things. You get the whole range of emotions from, she often has fun drawing, she enjoys drawing, but also there's really tough topics coming up that she's dealing with and not shying away of putting on paper. And I think it's this honesty and openness that really is impressive in this exhibition. So you'll also see a strategy that Cara Walker usually pursues. You go into this exhibition, it's like beautifully installed, it's very balanced, it's very museum-like, and once you start getting closer to the works, you'll discover a world of violence and sexual abuse, of torture and fragmented bodies that is not as beautiful as the exhibition might look as a whole. So, but I think we want to hear what Cara has to say about the show, at least I do as well, and I'm sure you will want to hear herself. So, you took this decision to open your archive quite a while ago. So, and at the beginning, I know you weren't sure yourself how you looked at these things, or it was a kind of an excavation, you said. So how do you feel about that today, or how's your look at these drawings at this point? Has it changed in the 3 years?
Oh, I don't know. I think that when I started opening the boxes, and it did feel like this challenge. I think the earliest idea was that I was going to give you 1,000 drawings. I said, I want to find 1,000 drawings, and then as I started thinking about editing and selecting and what that process is, I did begin to wonder if there was any transformational value in showing these works in a museum. Like for me as an artist personally, would it make sense would I be able to make sense of the self that I am? Would I be able to make sense of myself and this work, and my reasons for keeping it away from, the public after it was installed? I'm not sure that I'll be able to answer that or not, but I feel like I'm a little bit closer to understanding the puzzle of identity, and I think the process of putting the show together and moving between works and having this kind of relationship that's partially visual. This piece looks better here than over here, but this piece is chronologically not related to this work over here, is also very interesting because it constantly reshuffles the deck on identity.
Does it also maybe give you sort of a relief? This is a strange word, maybe, because I think it's just a lot of courage. I mean, to show these things that are very hard, very difficult, unresolved. The stuff of the American and not just American reality, the injustice and all of that. And so to have it sort of on the walls like that, does it also give you distance that is productive for you?
I don't know. Well, relief, no, but distance, yes. I think there's a sense when I step back from it, I see a very vulnerable body, and it becomes. Like I said, there's this reshuffling going on where I begin to think about, the world that we live in, the world that I come from, and I also begin to think about the act of drawing and the reception of drawing and the kind of demands that I think these drawings are making on me personally as I'm making them and on a viewer. And I feel that one of the, I don't know if it's not really a joke, but one of the tricks, I guess, of the show is that drawing is supposed to keep quiet. Drawing isn't supposed to make huge demands on a viewer, and so I feel like there's something very unsettling in, even if the demand is take me seriously as a drawing, which is kind of a human rights concern. If drawings could speak about their legitimacy as citizens of the art world. So I feel like there's something very kind of interesting going on that's not exactly a sense of relief, but just a sense of agitation, maybe.
Another question, of course, a lot of people are wondering, what is the title about? You can read it in one of the vitrines, it's one of the scrolls, and it has a first part that goes with it, and it says, the sweet, sweet smell of success and the stench of ingratitude. And then it follows.
Everything a star longs to be.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's just poetry. It made perfect sense to me when I wrote it. That's all I can say. And I do note that there are instances on, I think, 3 different scrolls where the idea of the black hole or the event horizon come into play as far as like a space of, they talk about the black hole a lot as a space of no return, but there's a recent article that I was reading that a science journalist was really trying to reposition our understanding of black holes as not as like the ultimate doom, which is of course kind of a patriarchal construct, and as a site of possibility, that there is something unknown there that is transformative and that we simply don't understand it.
Well, it seems words are very important to you. There's text pieces, and you're very, very good with words. So how does writing and drawing interrelate?
I guess I think with writing, it becomes this kind of way to keep going. I think that it's apparent in some of the images that are in different galleries here, that there are moments when myself, there's me, the artist, wrestling with the very act of drawing, and the act of representation, particularly as it comes to these conversations around identity, is always fraught. How do you represent, a female body, nude or not nude, black, is it a stereotype? Is it, is it positive? Is it, trafficking and different tropes? And so there's always this kind of fertile kind of conversation around representation that I sometimes simply can't engage with. And so I have to write. I think I have to just sit back and say, there's no picture that's going to satisfy us today. So, but I have to do something. I have to kind of get clear on why. And I think there are some groups of drawings that are just text, but I still think of them as paintings or as drawings, because they come out of that same space of introspection and, I guess, improvisation. There's nothing planned, that the words just emerge and they flow from there with very little editing, usually without editing or misspelled words or whatever, but I just let the words come in the same way that a line might follow another line that would depict a body or a figure. Yeah, it's important for me to write, though. I don't know why. And I don't know how I figured out to do it.
May I maybe pick on, you mentioned, the patriarchy of, or you alluded to sort of one of the burdens you're dealing with is, of course, this kind of patriarchal concept maybe of the Western canon in general, and painting maybe especially, and mostly what you show here are drawings, not paintings, or they're very different from this kind of tradition. And on the other hand, you have some, I believe, admiration for some exponents of this tradition, like Goya or
Not at all. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is about desire and acceptance. I think the first time I came to Europe as a young, art student, I was like blown away. And I think that I've always found it very interesting. I grew up in a kind of a provincial setting, but there was an arts component to it. And in the 70s, that arts component was very multicultural, very much about politics, very much about Vietnam, about black rights, and other indigenous people's rights. So there was that conversation existed for me already, and then it's always existed in the different sort of circles that I've been in as a young artist, or as an artist up and coming. And the dynamic of questioning the Western canon and seeking out African art, or seeking out a more vernacular sort of language that speaks to the conditions of being Black in America in particular. I've always been interested in that wrestling match that happens in the art world, and really questioning my love and allegiance for the kind of Western canon, right? Not like, not so much that it's a love-hate, and I think that I definitely have my heroes in that world, and I think that the whole question of colonialism and colonizing, as an artist, colonizing those Western spaces has been a part of the concept, I guess, of what I'm doing.
Well, to leave no doubt, I think that's why we are also impressed, because I think you've worked out to create a position for yourself, dealing with the most hardest kind of stereotypes in many ways, and one of them is certainly also the figurative tradition. So I think it's very impressive how you managed to do this tightrope walk in that area.
Maybe we'll We'll talk a little bit about the more recent drawings as well, and not just about the archival aspect. So there's, for instance, the role portraits of Barack Obama. How were the reactions in the US, or did you expect people the way they...
The Barack Obama drawings were shown the beginning of March of 2020, and then we went into lockdown. So the reactions were minimal at best. I mean, people were surprised by them, and I was surprised by them too. I mean, it was a little bit of a, I think what Anita was saying about kind of thinking about doing a drawing show here, I thought I would sort of pull out all the stops with the drawing materials for a little while, the traditional drawing materials, because it's fun, and there's something a little bit, I mean, it feels a little bit wrong, you know, a little bit left-handed to do Conte crayons on treated paper, but I really got a kick out of it. But the Barack Obama, I'm not a portraitist per se, but I was thinking a bit about the recent, or at the time, unveiling of the official portrait of Barack Obama by Kehinde Wiley, and thinking about all the crap that Obama had to endure as not just a head of state, but as a kind of iconic black male head of state, in a time where, his legitimacy, not just as president, but as an American or whatever, as a human, even among the racist set, was really all of these sort of racist tropes that for years people keep telling me have been under the surface. I said, no, they're always there. I never thought they were under the surface. I thought they were just not being heard. Suddenly they had a big platform in the form of Donald Trump and his contingent of birthers who started this conspiracy theory around Barack Obama's legitimacy. So I just thought I wanted to do my own. I said, what would have happened if I had been asked to do a portrait of Barack Obama? That was my first question. And then I said, well, I wouldn't have, but this is what I would do. So I thought I would try and think about him as this allegorical figure that he had sort of become, or had always been, even before he arrived in the person that he was. There's always been this mythological idea of the black president, and this is like a source of fear and loathing and fascination and potential that, Morgan Freeman has been the black president many times in movies, I think. In any case, I thought I would do a few and see what would happen. So we have the sort of Othello version, and this sort of mischaracterization of the savage African, and the Barack Obama as the beacon of hope in a doomed world, and Barack Obama as a tormented Saint Anthony.
And
which is,
yeah.
Go ahead.
I think especially in these portraits, I mean, they're heavy and thoughtful in terms of content, but you can actually see not only that you can draw, you can do whatever you want on paper, but that you had fun thinking about the Isenheimer altar in Colmar or Schongauer. Yeah.
I mean, it's satire, right? I guess that's what it is. I shouldn't be cagey about it. And then the other works that are recent are a little bit more elusive, I guess. There's the Fealty is Faint, which is just very expressive. And then the Pata Gravidam series, which you mentioned.
Yeah, the Pata Gravidam series, I think, it's a 38-part drawing suite, and I think it shows very well that, it's not only about the history of slavery, but it's about a lot of recent research that has come forth, for instance, about medical history and how much slavery, the history of slavery played into using, for instance, African American bodies for medical research in the late 19th century.
American grave diggers, grave robbers, to dig up those bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one topic of this group that has been also, I think, a topic for you recently during the COVID period.
Yeah, well, I think also, during this period, and also just prior, and there was so much discussion around trafficking in, images of Black Death, right? That's been a topic that came up in around 2017. I don't know that it's, I think it's unavoidable in the world that we live in, and I don't know that it's in particular just Black Death, but it is, there's something very spectacular, and has been for, more than 100 years, particularly with the images of lynched bodies that were, sent around as postcards and were documented widely in the late 19th and early 20th century. So this kind of repetitious mantra of white power or the sort of majority forces reiterating its power by putting these bodies on display has always been kind of a question. But yeah, having these sort of anatomical or surgical theater images was also very interesting to me, just because of this conversation around display and being an artist and putting oneself out there, and there's like the sort of added layer of revelation, I guess, or evisceration.
You mentioned Schongauer and other sources. So actually seeing some of these things here in the collection, did it give you some concrete kind of? You're very well. You know very well art history. So I guess most of these famous works you did already know. But did it give you some inspiration? To see the originals, to see the real, the touch of the artist.
Absolutely. I mean, it's impossible not to love. Not just having access, but seeing the sort of artist's hand, either in drawings and prints, and I think that really collapses time for me in a way that's really, it's just very important. I think sometimes when people come into the museum space, everything kind of becomes separate and distant, and that happened 400, 500 years ago, and it has very little to do with me today, and it's really just because the clothing looks different. I think that's the, like what people are going through. And I think, and I often feel like I just saw the Goya show Goya drawings at the Met pretty recently. And it's a similar thing where you think everybody in their own time thinks that their time is the most important, because we are in it all together. And we don't seem to realize that everybody before us was feeling the exact same way. They were marveling at some novelty, and they were worrying about their positions as, in some hierarchy that, they may or may not have any control or agency over. And, going to war and, falling in love and, and making drawings. But I think that the artist's sort of capacity to sort of sit back and just say, this is what we believed was our, was our time, this is what was right in our time, this is who we are, is something I can't get enough of when I see it.
Well, I think you are outstanding, and I'm sorry you hate compliments, I know, but I'm saying this not to say a few nice words, but I think your position, your courage to really confront these things and to really be in your time and to react to things that very few of us can react in this way, or artists, I'm talking about artists, I think is just outstanding, and I think that's very impressive. Did COVID give you any? Did it also? COVID is a tragedy in many ways, and for a lot of people. But did it give you some privacy that you found productive for your work as an artist, or I don't know?
Well, actually, just on that note, I do want to just sort of do a little, quiet thank you to Maurice, who we lost very early on before we even really knew what was happening with COVID, because he'd finished that essay, shortly before he passed away, and I think that it became a reality the minute I knew somebody. It was a reality globally. It was sort of something that provoked just sense of fear and anxiety, but I didn't know the people who were dying. And so I think there was a good long period of time, which is in the world that we live in, several weeks already feels long, several months. And I wasn't really, I think I had this fantasy that I would, settle down and make work, but it didn't really happen like that. I think that there were too many life changes locally and, within the family. There was just a lot to wrestle with. So at the very end of last year, I had a moment of, I think things kind of hit some kind of moment of equilibrium where I started working on something. I was working on drawings. I mean, I did do drawings. It was a little bit like I had to, but I didn't think I was making art. Yeah.
Okay, should we offer the audience to ask a few questions? There's going to be a microphone, so who would like to ask something?
Thanks a lot. Hello. I remember the great exhibition with the monumental sculpture at Tate Modern 2 years ago, and the debate was also about if an artwork like that shouldn't be placed just in a museum but in public space. Do you think the situations for politically charged artworks has changed since? So that it's more likely that in the future artworks like yours would be placed in public space rather than just in museums?
I mean, I guess it sort of depends on what I want to do, right? I think with public art, what I think about with public art is that it's destined to be torn down by somebody. Like these Confederate statues, because history changes and people's minds change. My piece was always designed to be in the space of a museum. In that context, it was commissioned, and when you start, there's a very good example. Actually, I'm humming and I don't know why, but there's a very good example of a public commission that Fred Wilson, the artist Fred Wilson, designed for, I think, Indianapolis, Indiana, and he had taken an original sculpture and duplicated the slave image that was on this, the sculpture that was commemorating, I guess, abolition, perhaps. I'm not really sure what its intention was, but there was a black figure on the original sculpture, and he took that, he made his own bronze, and he repositioned the figure upright as opposed to sort of kneeling on the ground in a subservient position. And with all the good intentions of sort of offering this back to the public wasn't interested in it at all. Public was outraged. They didn't want to have anything to do with this piece. And it was a completely different conversation than what the artist thought he was going to have with, relating to the artwork, relating to the public, relating to the history of the space. This is a black artist, and the black community said, we don't want to talk about slavery. Like, we're not there now. So what do you do? The public is an unruly mob, and it's beautiful. But I think I've always kind of been interested in these institutional problems that, like, how can you sort of engage somebody when they come into the staid and proper space of the museum or gallery, and then have them feel something unsteady and unstable. or, yeah.
Hello, also a question that touches on the institutional. I like to think that your work has a certain revolutionary edge, and now you're here exhibiting one of the most privileged countries in the world. Do you think it gains or loses that edge, or do you think your work stays the same anywhere where it's exhibited?
I don't know how people in Switzerland see this work. You know, I think the edge to it, I guess, comes. I don't know if it dulls because it becomes art objects, or if people can relate at all to a sense of their own being looking at the work. I think that it's funny. I was thinking about revolution, and I was thinking about fluidity, and the proposals on a lot of my work are about a kind of a fluidity from one state of one idea of being, you know, like female, woman, you know, black, American, like, and all of these kinds of categories, and then the sort of like gooey material sort of shifting that happens in the space of drawing, or can happen perhaps in political space less easily. But to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know if.
I think the good news are that there won't be just Swiss people.
Yeah.
Seeing your show, you know, this is a good thing about Basel. It's in Europe. It's not just in Switzerland. It's so hopefully we'll have a growing number of international visitors. But there are.
I might add before the next question that it's a nice feature that this passage, which is almost not half, but maybe a third of the exhibition, is open for everyone who walks in. You don't need a ticket to go through this passage. And I think a lot of people would just step into Caro's exhibition without expecting it, just going from one building to the other one, looking for the lockers. And I think that I like this idea that people will walk in and think, oh, nice drawings, and then be confronted with what's on paper, and maybe, you know, accept this invitation to look into it. So I think that's a nice feature of this two-part exhibition space.
Thank you very much for being here. If it's not too risky, if it's not too intimate, would you care to talk to us about your artistic relationship with your father? If there was any influence from him, because
I mean, I've talked about it before, so it's just like, I mean, I have an older sister and an older brother, and mom and dad. And my dad's an artist. He taught for many years at the university level, but he also had a degree in childhood education. So we were all guinea pigs in that. And I think, like Jim Henson's children, the Muppet creator, some got into the family business and some didn't. I think it just stuck with me. I think there was something very, very much like, I spent a lot of time. We were out and about looking at fathers with their children over the weekend, and I thought, yes, this is something that I also experienced, you know. Going to the university art galleries, I had numbers of adult friends who looked after me for a little while, but they were always artists. And so I think that the combination of my dad, but also these influences, some of these adult influences some who are no longer with me, but I think of always as, you know, sort of aunties and uncles in the world of printmaking and pottery and, you know, the things that were happening around me, and a sense of, and it was also the 70s, you have to keep in mind, so there was a lot of kind of like acceptance of, and, you know, exploring your whatever. And so I think that all of those influences really gave me a sense of, not purpose, but it just made it okay. What was really, I think, important as I began to take art classes and take, and study for my degree was to really question, was it okay? Because I realized that I was going to school with colleagues who didn't have that, that little boost, the little booster seat, and they had to kind of determine for themselves or even fight for the right to call themselves an artist or make art. And so I really, I think that was and also an important step, was separating from the, from that influence.
One last question. No, okay, you've answered it all.
Good. All right.
Well, then I'm sure there are more questions, but thank you again for being here. As indicated earlier, there will be a video walkthrough, through a video walk through the exhibition right now. So those online, please stay on. And thank you again for being here. And thank you, Cara and Anita, for creating this wonderful, powerful project. Thank you.